Teach with passion. This is a very, very important subject. Make sure that no student in the class goes unnoticed. Make sure that the student who is maybe not doing that well gets that extra oomph, that extra attention from you, whether you work at lunchtime or after school or before school. Make sure that everyone is included. When you're teaching, make sure you call on every single student in that class, whether their hand is up or not. My name is Anna Huddeman, and I am a former full-time math teacher at St. Thomas More School. I taught math at St. Thomas More for about 40 years. I think I always wanted to be a teacher from the time I was little, playing school, but I was very, very much influenced by my junior high and most especially high school math teachers. And the one in particular was Mr. Cromack, who was a young man fresh out of college who just had a wonderful way of teaching. He was very enthusiastic, made things very clear, and just made math fun and very enjoyable and very satisfying. So when I went to college, I majored in history, which I loved, minored in math. I go from history to math. Well, when I went to college and declared to my advisor that I wanted to teach history, what she said to me was, history teachers are a dime a dozen. Many, many students are majoring in history. You have to have something else that's going to maybe single you out from the rest. She said, try a minor in something where there is a greater demand. And I said, how about math? Because I really loved math in school as well. And she said that would be a fine combination. So I majored in history and minored in math. And when I started teaching, I was teaching in high school both history subjects and math subjects. So I was teaching both. But then after our children arrived and I was not teaching for 7 or 8 or 9 years and went back into teaching, the job I applied for was a math job, and the rest is history, so to speak. I really found that I loved it, and I am very happy that it worked out that way. Well, one of my favorite stories, which isn't really particularly math, but I was teaching 6th grade and I was doing percents, and I was trying to make the case for how percents are used and math is used in the real world. So we had this whole list that kids were coming up with, ways that percents are used in the real world. And we talked about percent of precipitation maybe, or of snow, like tonight we might be having snow. We talked about sales tax, and we talked about banking, and we talked about how banks make money, and we talked about how they give interest but charge more when they're giving loans. So we had this 20-some minute conversation about how banks make money, and I thought I had them eating out of the palm of my hand. And I said, okay, is there anybody else who wants to contribute? And a little girl raised her hand. She said, I know another way that banks make money. And I said, really, how? She said, well, you know that gumball machine they have in the foyer of the bank? And I had to turn and face the board because I didn't want to laugh in her face. P.S. She's now a teacher. I didn't expect to retire when I did. My mother, who lived in New Jersey, came to live with us because we could see that she was having a difficult time living on her own. She was forgetful, and as it turns out, had Alzheimer's. So we moved her here with us. We put an extension on her house and moved her here, but it was very, very evident that she would not be able to stay by herself during the day. And so I retired to take care of my mother. And then a few years later, when she was in a nursing home, I was able to return to teaching. which I did. So I retired really 3 different times.